Good evening. You are listening live to the Extreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob. Tonight, joining me is the young millennial 20-something man himself, Professor Pixel. We are going to be discussing our live reaction and commentary on the recent James Bond release, No Time to Die, aka Bond is Dead. We're going to spoil everything. We're going to talk about our thoughts and feelings at it. As No Time to Die is showing up here. Spoilers, absolutely. Here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen. Here on the Extreme Movie Show, we like to review movies. We like to give you our personal take on it. There's a lot I don't like as your host, Rob. There's a lot I do. And I'm the older guy. We have RDV, who's kind of in the middle, where he does a lot of the action films with me. But then we have Professor Pixel, who's actually reviewing all the James Bond movies in order with me as well.
Yep.
We're about halfway through as far as
Classic.
classics, Connery. Well, really more than halfway through. We only have one more. We're actually stopping on Her Majesty's Secret Service. And the reason why I mention that, Professor, is that this movie, No Time to Die, despite any delays there may have been with COVID, there's a lot to say about the way the movie was going to come out before we even get into the movie. And I want to touch about that first, and that's why I mentioned on Her Majesty's Secret Service. This movie has a few strong pluses to it, surprisingly. And I say surprisingly because we've come to know, in my opinion, the last few films have been absolutely wretched and just horrible. And people always like to argue and fight about Bond films. But this is by far one of the worst Bond movies of all time. And it relies heavily on drawing on a lot of older Bond films, which, spoiler alert, Bond is dead. Again, repeat, Bond is dead. Has been dead for quite some time, if you want to think about it that way, because this movie actually tells you everything that's going to go on. And no matter what happened with COVID and the delays for releasing it, the fact of the matter is that ever since Barbara Broccoli took over, I think from her father, Cubby Broccoli, this has gone into a totally anti-James Bond type of set of movies. And we can go back and argue that some other day, since we're focused on this movie. They even hired people to come in to make Bond more, I guess, PC and all that. So we all know this. And some of us, I think of the younger audience, say this movie is incredible. It's great. Some of us older fans like this that think, Connery's the GOAT. This film, it's frustrating because not only do the movie makers for this film totally emasculate Bond in every possible way, the positives are very striking and make this a bit more heart-wrenching, because this is where knowing Bond's going to die, I think, allowed Craig to come in and say, you know what? I'll actually have charisma as a Bond person. And the fact that he doesn't sleep with any women at all is pretty obvious, and the fact that he gets upstaged by more than one woman in his film is also very obvious. However, some of the action scenes are pretty good. Some are nonsensical. The way the film looks pretty damn good, and there's some shots in here that I go, this is pretty effing epic, pretty good looking. But I'm not even talking about the plot and how brainless some of the plot stuff is, because really we all want to know what the hell happens to Bond and does he die? Because I will say this, and I want your opinion on this. Whoever watched the trailers for this Bond film, this film you got was not like the trailers.
No.
We go ahead and start with that.
Yeah, no, you're right. The trailers made it look like, I don't completely agree that they emasculate Bond completely. I think it's just a different point in his life, but we'll talk about that after. The trailers made it look like that the new 007 would come in, swoop in, steal the show. It's hard to steal something when people are just forcing it on the plate, but it's actually surprising because despite she can be quite arrogant in her way, she has an attitude, but it's just she's not as bad as they would want you to believe. And that's another hard point, because there's so much about this movie that we can like. We like that it calls back to, it harkens back to the classic Bonds that we're going through on the channel right now. And it has so many elements that you're able to enjoy. But it's like something that you can get a spoonful and it's, wow, I'm surprised. I didn't expect this to be as good as it was. Then the aftertaste comes in. The aftertaste just ruins the entire feeling you felt beforehand.
Yeah, so I mean, we're obviously, Bond being dead, we're going to talk about how that happens and the significance of it, because actually I think it shouldn't have been a surprise. They basically start the movie off with Bond kind of acting like a simp, and he's still thinking about Vesper, and they're driving down this road, and he's talking to her, and they have goo goo eyes at each other, and then they go through the whole "we have all the time in the world" bit, and you even get some of that playing. And so at first I thought, okay, they're going to make this, Bond 25 call back to a lot of stuff. That's fine. I have no problems with that. But to me, of course, if you know that film, you know what happens. And
Yeah.
of course, they said, aha, we're going to turn it back on and make Bond's going to be the one that's going to die. So they telegraph it right off the bat. They don't even bother to try to hide it or string it out or whatever. To me, of course, it's a very long film. It's almost 3 hours long, too. That's extremely excessive. You could cut a chunk out of here. I'm going to say this about Lashana Lynch, I think is her name, the actress who plays 007. Um, a lot of times in business, politics, and entertainment, you float trial balloons out there to see how people are going to respond. I think even though the trailers originally looked pretty good, and the way the film looks itself was kind of engaging, and I was actually interested in it despite the delay, and even though I hated the last few films, I was curious to see what they were going to do. And I had no doubt in mind that having a new director and Carrie Joe coming in, it would look different. And it does. An actual scene early on where Bond goes to visit, was it Vesper's grave, and then he looks at the flowers and sees the octopus ring there, and it blows up. That's pretty badass. And that whole chase sequence was done really well. I was like, man, we're starting off good. We're starting off hot. We're starting off fresh. Other
When
than
he
Bond's
gets on the
character.
motorcycle and he goes right up that narrow flight of stairs, and it was like, whoa. There's a lot of good action in here, right? Especially in this beginning. But go on, sorry.
Oh no, it's okay. No, I agree. It's Lashana Lynch. So Bond is 007, and we associate that. However, his job is when he's on getting paid, he's 007. When he's not, he's not. Of course, it's not a real person, but so we as fans know him as 007. So I want to know that they mince words and basically say, okay, she's technically the new 007, you're not. And she starts off real bitchy, real cunty with him, and everything back and forth. And I actually thought, there was a scene or two where Bond knows he's being followed, and actually he kind of gives it back to her a little bit. And
Yes.
it's like, wait a minute. Are you guys trying to swerve us by early on in the movie having him do this way? And is he just going to be insignificant as it goes on? Because everyone made yucks at him actually showing up, and he's like, the name's Bond. And the guy's looking at him like, yeah. And so you're of the character that for 50 years plus, 60 years, whatever, has made you billions of dollars, literally. Last one was 800 million, I think. And it's just not funny to do it, especially when you know this is going to be an ending. So again, the trailers suck. Don't do justice for it. And for Lashana Lynch to come in and do all this, I am going to defend her and say this. They did her a disservice, because if you're going to intimate that you're going to replace Bond with a woman of color, that's fine if you choose to go in that direction. But if you're going to do it, in my opinion, as a film goer, you need to be committed. Halfway towards this film, she almost finds a reasonable side, says, permission to abscond my 007 status and let James Bond get the title back. Are you effing kidding me? Absolute nonsense. They emasculated her in a sense at the end. If you're
Well,
going to
no,
do this,
I'm
do it full bore and let her own it. And I'm okay with that. Be committed to it. And they didn't do it. So not only did they screw James Bond out of it, they screwed the person that they kept shoving in our face that was supposed to replace it. And if you're going to do it and be bold, more power to you. Whether I like it or not, I'll at least respect the fact that you were committed in your decision making. They waffled and failed completely hard, and that made everything about the end look bad.
I mean, I don't completely agree with that. I think it is. Oh, it's respectable in a way. And it is respectful that when you have somebody who's worked for the service for this many years and you go ahead and take the title and you just pass it on, that's a title you retire. that you go ahead and say, okay, this is the end. And so when she takes it, she goes ahead and she's trying to upstage him, but at some points he really gives it back to her. I'm going to take your plane, and so he does. But I think there are two ways of looking at it. You're right; they could have had it where she really can own it, and it's okay in a sense, because she does grow on you as you're watching. She really does grow on you.
You think so?
Yeah, after she gets over the initial "stay out of my way" Bond, she does, and I like her working with Bond. I thought it was a good team up. And so there are two ways to look at it. Yes, they could they emasculate her in a sense that she gives it up, but at the same time, it's respectable because 007 is Bond to a lot of people, and that argument has been made. And I was even one of the people that said, okay, wait. Even though I'm not sure this movie will be good, we can't say that that the moniker, as it were, is what makes James Bond James Bond. It is his own character. He is James Bond, and that's just a number. I mean, that's his number. That's what we know. But when it comes to Bond, it can be executed properly without that attached to him. And in the first act, we could see Jeffrey Wright. I love
Felix
this
Leiter.
Actor. He is Felix Leiter, yes. And
what do they do to Felix? The guy we all want to be our partner if we are a spy.
They kill him.
Why?
What?
Why do they kill him? What's the point?
I mean, I think it was at that moment. It's
now you can't have him show up in the next series of films, and even if they relaunch him or whatever they're going to do with it,
we're going to say that
conversation. A really great side character, yeah.
We're going to say that conversation about the future of Bond for after we get to our initial reactions for the movie. I think that's important that we go ahead and talk about this movie right now. Then we talk about the future of what can come, because after the end credits, they have James Bond will return, which is kind of a slap in the face after you just killed the man. But that's another conversation.
All right, well, let's talk about another character here in this first act. So, okay, they kill off a likable character that we haven't seen a lot of, but what time he's been on screen has really been great. So we're already wrestling with the fact that Daniel Craig's turning in an actually fairly solid performance, like he actually almost cares. And then you kill off his buddy. Let's talk about is it Ana de Armas? Is that how you say her name? Beautiful woman.
Yeah, no, she is
5'6", 120 pounds, and she played a strong woman in here. And even though she seemed like an airhead ditz, nervous at first or whatever, then they have the Spectre rave party where everybody dies. Which is kind of a cool setup, actually. I have to admit, the bad dude I thought looked horrible on the motorcycle with the eye. But then when we found out it was a bionic eye that Blofeld was checking out Wi-Fi, I thought, this is freaking badass. This is cool. This is using gadgets without going overboard. And I'm not a gadget guy, but I even loved the Aston Martin in here, even the stupid little spin and circle shoot stuff and all that. Thought that was great. But she comes in, and of course she's in heels or whatever like that, and just kicks everybody's ass. And I just really didn't like that whole scene, but I thought, wow, she means business. She rams the car right into the ladder to get the Ruski guy down or whatever. And I thought, okay, LaShawn Lynch, you're all talk, no action, because here you're failing in actually getting the guy here too. So not getting her something easy and simple, achievable early on also emasculates LaShawn Lynch's character early on. It's really laughable what they did with her, because like I say, if you're going to do it, be committed. And while I disagree with you about she grows on you, I totally don't think it's the case. I think they probably did her the worst injustice out of everybody, because we kind of know how Bond's been shit on the entire run. So to introduce a character that's supposed to attempt to be a trial balloon is really, really bad. I thought Ana did fine with the screen time she was in, but what was she on for 5 minutes? And by the trailers, you thought she's going to be a key figure, and she's not. It's just a little side thing. That's it.
Yeah, no, I was sad to see her go, really.
All right, she was likable. She was competent. She did what she did well. That's typically Bond. Like with, oh, but wait, they killed Felix off. Oh, now they got rid of her because Anna's not in here. Okay, so what are we left to enjoy so far? Okay, let's talk about his girlfriend / daddy issue girlfriend, because the movie actually opened with a really great, scene introducing the bad guy and filling in some backstory we didn't know. Go ahead with that.
Yeah, no,
the snow was a beautiful shot.
Yeah, no, Madeline, that's her name, that's his wife. It seems that whenever she was a girl, her mother was an alcoholic. Her father was Mr. White, and he was hired to kill what's his name? Safin's family.
Safin.
And so Safin goes to kill him. So she goes back. He goes to his house and only finds the mother and daughter there. So he kills the mother because, well, he killed his family. And then Madeline ends up handling herself, actually shooting Safin as a girl.
That was so cool. When the kid takes the gun out and shoots him, I'm like, I don't know what the hell's going on here, but I'm really liking it. This is awesome.
Yeah, and then she ends up trying to drag the body out of the house. I didn't really understand that, but she left the gun in his hand.
Yeah,
and
completely
so
stupid.
finally he takes a deep breath in and sits up, and so she runs across the ice, and the ice starts cracking, and she falls in, and she's going up against the ice. You can see her, and that's when Rami Malek, Safin, comes over, and he shoots around the ice and then pulls her out, saving her life. I'm going to take this moment to talk about Rami Malek because as a villain, he really, I don't mind the guy. He's a good guy. Well, I guess he's a fine guy.
I feel a butt coming on.
But everything I've ever seen him in, it's delivered exactly the same. We watched The Little Things with Denzel Washington.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly the same.
Yes.
You watch even the what's it called? Night at the Museum, where he's playing an Egyptian prince. Exactly the same. And I don't know why this guy gets hired. It's not to be offensive to him. I have no ill will towards him.
This is Rami Malek right here, and I am not an actor, and I've had absolutely no professional nor vocal training, but I'm looking at something on my desk, and I am going to give you Safin, aka Rami Malek, right here. I'm holding a Premier protein shake in my hand right now, and pretty soon I will start to drink. It's horrible, and that was actually a little too clear. It's awful. He's not intimidating. He's a little guy. He's got a kind of a creepy vibe to him, but he's so small and petite. You go, how is this guy intimidating at all? He's not. And I don't hate him in this film, but he's emasculated as well. He has zero umph to him, and that's not his fault. That's the way he's written.
I'm going to disagree. Nope. I disagree. It is his fault. He cannot deliver. That's what it is.
He's no Donald Pleasant, sir.
Some of the lines they're really good when he's going on about how his father, when he talks about his father and the garden and his plots and whatever he's in that final scene that he has with Bond.
Yeah.
It just needs to be delivered by somebody who can actually, I don't know, have range.
Well, I won't argue that. It's
so because there's sometimes we've seen movies with even bad dialogue, and the performance can outshine that. And when we talk about classic Bond villains, they have a flair to them. Rami Malek can't find flair to save his life to go ahead and point it out and shoot the gun in the sky. It's
and I'll keep an eye here on the chat too. If anybody's got specific questions or things they'd like us to comment on, we'll be more than happy to do it. This is more of a freestyle review. It's a little typical or atypical of what we typically do with our films. But as far as Rami goes, he's just there to me. One thing I want to say in general about the film before we pivot on to a different point of view here is this movie, no matter how much I hated it, still doesn't feel like a Bond film. I think it looks really good. I liked the fact that they had some of the music of, like, say, on Her Majesty's Secret Service, and he says we all have all the time in the world, and you hear it in the orchestra. And there's some other neat things with music going on with it. But I felt about after the first act, there was very little music. And it just, when I'm watching this, I'm going, if this person wasn't named James Bond, this would just feel like an action film. And Bonds are spy movies to me, not action, even though there's a ton of action on these days. And some of them can be neat with the stunts and all that. It just didn't feel like a Bond film. So I
I
don't know who to fault for
disagree.
that. No, it just doesn't feel like a Bond film at all. What makes it feel like a Bond film to you?
I mean, we talked about how Daniel Craig, his performances have been lackluster as Bond for years. And a lot of people say that modern Bond feels just like Jason Bourne with the name plastered onto it. I'm going to say in this film, he performs exceptionally. It's really good. If he had been performing like this through the last few movies, people wouldn't be able to say that. Also, the elements, as it were, I feel like it holds a lot of that classic feeling, and that's what's important. So, I mean, yes, he doesn't get to sleep around as much as he does in the past, but I didn't feel like it was necessary. I mean, they could have had that.
Totally disagree. You have a guy that's supposed to have certain character things. I was pissed when they switched to Heineken, years ago, and nobody talks about those little things anymore. Bond used to smoke, now he doesn't.
Mhm.
I mean, it's like I say, it's not just Craig. It's been, like I said, ever since Barbara Broccoli took over, they've done everything they can to go away from what the character is.
But
And but what?
I feel like we said, I haven't seen. I think I saw Skyfall, I saw Spectre, and then I saw this one. I haven't seen Casino Royale or Quantum of Solace yet, so I'm not sure. It's just going off of the two performances, but I think out of all of the performances I've seen, this is the most where he is actually able to take on the character. It's not just lame delivery. And you know what? Even it really grinds my gears. There's a movie called Knives Out, and Daniel Craig's in that, and he's playing like a southern kind of almost a ridiculous inspector, but he has so much charisma in it, and he has that finally in here. You're actually able to believe that he's got some charm to him, even though he doesn't use it. But we know why he doesn't use that, because he's supposed to still be hankering for his wife that he ended up dropping off on a train. But I feel like out of any of the modern movies that I've seen, this is enough to say it is a Bond film until they break the rule. And that's at the end. You break the rule as soon as you kill the legend, as it were.
Well, that is a rule, but I want to talk about his girlfriend here for a minute too, because I think,
His
again,
wife.
we're not even trying to. Well, what a girlfriend, wife, I don't know, because I didn't see rings. Maybe I missed that.
They got married. That's the whole thing. They're on their honeymoon, as it were.
Okay.
In the
Well,
opening.
didn't seem very clear to me. Either that, or I was so pissed I couldn't see. I'd mention in here because Justin was asking what current working actor would you cast as James Bond in the reboot. And before Craig, I was really big into Clive Owen. I thought he was a great mix of the whole British thing and all that too. Now I don't know what they're going to do, but everybody's kind of high right now on either Tom Hardy or the Witcher guy. What's his name?
Henry Cavill.
Henry Cavill, who physically I think would do the role. And I think since the last Mission Impossible film, when we saw him in that, we go, wow, I think he could do a good job. And right now, if I had to pick somebody, I would want to pick him, because I want to pick somebody that physically looks like they could kick ass a little bit, kind of like Sean Connery. And it depends on how they're going to go with rebooting it. But if they're going to change Bond or keep Bond the way he is now, emasculated and all that, then you could get some little guy that stars in some of these, British things that, nobody seems to watch, like the Bodyguard. I think this is young looking guy who's got a brooding face. He looks great, but he looks like a young kid. People have high talk about him. I forget his name. What were you gonna say?
So what I'm going to say is, as for Henry Cavill, at least towards his benefit, there's a movie called Man from U.N.C.L.E., and he plays one of the leads in that, and it is a spy film. And he's really great. He is, so he can play that. I'm going to disagree a little bit because I think he's too big, if that makes sense. While Sean Connery absolutely was fit, I think Henry Cavill, he is muscular. He's to that point where, okay, he's playing Superman and it makes sense because he's got the body type. And he plays The Witcher. He's got that body type. But I think he might be just too big.
He can drop 20 pounds easy and do it, especially if he's not running the cycle. So, and Tom Hiddleston, like Justin saying in chat, I've seen him in some stuff. I think he has a look. I don't really honestly know too much about his background, so I can't really speak to that, but I've heard his name mentioned a lot. And I've heard a lot of others too that I look at him and I just go, it doesn't look like a Bond, you know?
No.
You know? So
I
don't know about Hiddleston.
I love Tom Hiddleston as an actor. He's great. I've seen him in many things. There was a series that he did a few years ago with Hugh Laurie called The Night Manager, and he's a great actor. But you're right. He doesn't have the Bond element. And
part of the Bond element, though, is about like Clive Owen. He's too old. They want somebody that they know they can have for, say, 3 to 5 films. And so I think that's the thing. And I don't know Hiddleston's age. I'm sure he could act and do a good job, but again, it all depends on what they plan on doing. Because the Craig movies, even though you said you haven't seen all of them, the idea was that they were somehow all related. And so, you know, if you can't just go see the third film and just like, okay, I'm watching a Bond film, because a lot of what's going on there allegedly has happened with the first and second films, and they're loosely related. And the second one, Quantum of Solace, even though there's a writer's strike, people go, I don't know, something about water. I mean, that's really how you describe it, even though it's got some interesting things in it. So it's just, you know.
I really hate that. I haven't seen Casino Royale, obviously, but that was
Casino is actually great.
It's supposed to be a reboot, so a relaunch of the Bond franchise. And so if you take that into consideration, I can see some people saying, oh, well, this isn't a perfect ending because it's supposed to be Daniel Craig's Bond. It's not connected to anything else. But I think that leads to a point where I've said this. If Daniel Craig left, they would have been forced to go back to form. And I think that wouldn't let them commit the atrocity that is the end.
Yeah. Well, let's do this. Let's talk about, I want to bring up something about his girlfriend that I had left out. To me, I did not like what they did with the story with her. I find her to be very boring, and she can look great in a nice dress and all that. I think in the last film, the way she was in it, everything felt forced and manufactured. I felt zero chemistry between them. And it's nice, you know, Hollywood has an endless supply of beautiful women of all shapes, sizes, and attractions, but it just doesn't work for me in here watching it. And the fact that they, you know, Felix Leiter's American counterpoint, who ends up being like a chattish kind of dude bro frat guy.
Smiley, Guy Smiley.
Guy Smiley, yeah, not that a lot of people might get that reference, but yeah, that's appropriate. He ends up being a big time guy involved in all that. It's hinted at that the baby she has, the Bond finds out because she never bothered to tell him, even though allegedly, like you said, they got married, and I just said they were boyfriend and girlfriend. It's hinted that that's his baby and she left him. So it's like, okay, you're looking at Bond to be a baby daddy, or I mean, it doesn't work at all. I see absolutely no reason. And when basically he dumped her because he found out that that she was hiding something from him, I totally understood it. And this is what made me go, wow, Craig's really acting well. He left her at the train station. And she's like, I'm not going to see you again. He's like, nope. And of course we see him later, but it just doesn't work for me. It's something that was never successful. And even at the end with her daughter and all that, what happens to the daughter? The daughter's this cute little girl. They're down in the big bad secret underground lair, and the kid bites Rami's hand off. And to Rami's credit, he just says, if you don't want my protection, you can just leave. Sets the kid down. The kid just runs off, and he's like, I'm like, are you kidding me? So all it takes is a little girl to bite Rami's hand, and she gets off scot-free. And we're not even going to talk about how stupid the guards are that lets Madeline overpower them so she can be reunited with her daughter and, of course, escape. It's just so horrible. It doesn't do anything at all as far as being some sort of emotional attachment to Bond that's going to give you the big payoff when he's supposed to die and sacrifice himself at the end. And I will tell you, at the end, I was just like, kill him already. I'm done. I'm tired of this. The ending thing was horrible. The way they did it with
I
Bond, him talking to her, just didn't work at all. And I will tell you, in the theater that I was at, which was only about 50% full and mostly people middle age or older, nobody clapped at the end. Everyone just kind of sat there. There was no talk. There was no booze or no hiss. It was the worst possible thing of all movies. People are indifferent. At least that's where it was when I saw it. And I saw an afternoon show on Saturday in supposedly one of the biggest theaters here in my area.
So I am going to, again, disagree, because I didn't mind that moment when she's supposed to drink the tea and the tea makes you blind. So she goes ahead and says, "You know what this flower does?" And he's walking around, and eventually she tosses it back and blinds him. She runs to the door and is able to lock him in. And then the daughter, yeah, you're right. It is absolutely stupid. Rami Malek, his character, it feels like a lot of it's just, why? Why kill the world? Because that's his plot. I'm going to kill the world. Why? And then he just lets the little girl that he's struggled to get, because that's the thing. You're going to live here too. No, you said she's going to live there. That means against her will. But no, okay, just leave. There's also, but I don't agree about the Madeline point. I think the true crime is that last moment where you have the vial that it's Rami Malek and Bond, and he's trying to open up the blast doors so that way the missiles can destroy the entire island, because it's going to kill the world. And whenever he smashes that vial against Bond, you can't go near your daughter or wife ever again.
What was he wearing, Bond? What was the one thing Q, who, by the way, has the side thing where he gets all pissy with Bond, even though he lets him in, because he's like, "Oh, you having company?" He's like, "Yes, he'll be over in a moment." It's like, really? So what was he wearing? What device did he give him? What secret gadget? And what was the watch?
The watch is...
It was a super highly energetically charged what?
Well, it was to basically an EMP.
Electromagnetic pulse. And what does an electromagnetic pulse do, if you get that?
I mean, it
destroys
the
electronic
basic functions.
fields.
He uses it, actually. This is one of my favorite scenes. He uses it against the guy with the bionic eye. And he uses it on his head, and it blows up. And Q asks, "What happened?" "Oh, I just showed someone your watch. It really blew his mind." It's one thing. It's classic, and it felt so good.
The bionic eye is the only thing that they'll take away from this movie that makes me laugh and go, "That's kind of cool." No, actually, there was one other cool scene I wanted to point to you.
Okay.
When he's on the lam, and he goes to her home, when he's like, "Where will you go?" And she goes, "Home," and he knows where her home is, and they're like in Norway, and they have the chase scene or whatever, and then they end up in the tall woods there or whatever, and he hides them out, and he's looking around. That was a really good action sequence. I thought the car chasing didn't last too long, though. It was on foot with the guns and everything. I thought, this is freaking badass. This is the kind of clever action stuff I wanted to see from Bond, not the, "Hey, I have a giant EMP device in here, and while I use it for one little joke and all that to satisfy my one little Bond quotient for the film, we're not going to," like I say, it's not going to fulfill any other practical purpose that it could. Wouldn't it affect the nanobots? I would think so. Again, don't want to bite into that too hard.
Wow, I never thought about that.
Well, again, the plot is completely stupid. That's all I'm saying. And I'm trying to avoid the plot.
No, but we've had those movies already when we're going into the classic stuff, where we get to the point where, okay, well, this is kind of ridiculous at the end. Why would they keep Bond alive? Things like that. And it's forgivable if you keep to the important things. And I think the EMP, while it should be able to clear out technically the nanobots, but that leads to the question: the nanobots are pushing this disease through. They aren't the disease, as it were. It just passes the disease through by force.
They
And
are
so,
the vector, sir.
yes, but it goes ahead and puts the disease into the person. So the nanobots aren't exactly the force. So yeah, you destroy the nanobots, but you still have that disease deadly to the two. But what was I saying? I was getting to the point where oh no, we were just talking about it.
I was talking about how the movie sucked.
And you know what? I don't completely agree with that. I don't think it sucked, and that's the worst part about it, because the end ruins everything you just saw. Because there are a lot of elements that I was able to enjoy, and I was able to take that mindset, because On Her Majesty's Secret Service is one of my favorite Bond films. And so the idea of him falling in love isn't impossible to me.
Well, I don't have a problem with that. It's
And
just it's got to work for that to happen. But let's do this. What I want to do is I want to mention something here first, and then let's talk about Bond dying, and then we'll give up our final thoughts, and we'll check for any comments that we have in the chat. Of course, you were alluding to earlier when we were talking about Bond films and what we do. We're actually reviewing all the Bond films in order, so we're up to On Her Majesty's Secret Service, which will be our next one. So we have them out there. We're not on a specific schedule. It's roughly every other week, but we want to go through them all because you, Professor Pixel, haven't necessarily seen all of them. And being the young 20-something millennial that you are, it's interesting to get your take. Being a big, huge Bond fan since I was a kid, been watching the movies since the 70s. Bond is one of the few films that I will actually pay money to the theater and go see because it's Bond and deserves to be on a big screen. I agree with you that there was a lot of things in film terms that were likable. There's some great action sequences. It's beautifully shot. Some rich color in it. It's a really good looking film. I know that's so easy to sit there and say, but it matters. It should look big. They're globe trotting. It should look special like that. When they're in Cuba and driving around, all that, the sets look fantastic. Bond's Jamaica Beach House looks fantastic. The direction, I think, by the director gave it a serious element to it. I loved a lot of that. Okay. But we're talking about what makes a film a Bond film. It's not that it looks good. It helps. Okay. It's some of these key elements. And of course, the death, some people might say, well, it sucked because they killed Bond. Well, I can understand that. And I can understand people saying, no, it was an epic masterpiece because they built on everything through the 4 films previously. And so this is where it was all going. We all knew it. So they did it great. It was graceful and grand. And he was able to make amends with his loved ones, which, whatever, if that works for you, that's great. We're going to ignore the fact that, like I said, the plot was really bad. But what did you take of Bond dying? Did you actually think he was going to die? And with him dying, how did you feel?
I didn't know exactly how they were going to end it, and I actually disagree with one of the points that you even said. A lot of people said it's too long, but I felt there was so much good in there that to cut any of that would kind of suck. But it doesn't whenever you take the fact that at the end he dies, and that is totally against what we come to watch. We know at the end Bond is going to push through. Life, as it were, elements around it can fall apart, and there's still Bond. But the end of this, when he's standing on that island and he's watching the missiles come, and they just blast, there's no possible hint of, well, Bond could still be alive. No, they kill him. And they even set out a drink for him at the end. And it
felt very disingenuous.
Yeah, no. I mean, I agree.
Nobody there around the table liked him. They were all jerks to him. It's not like
Well, M is a complicated matter, because while at the beginning I felt like he was really an asshole to him, after he realized that what was happening, and he stopped being defensive because the project was actually partly because of him.
Mm-hmm.
He finally goes to Bond. He actually says that we need all the help we can get. So he reinstates him.
I'll like you, Bond, because my 007, who's a PC hire, can't get the job done, so you're on. So, like I say, they shit on both characters in here, and I think they probably
I
shit
mean,
on
I
her
just
even more. I know you do, but it's so plainly obvious to me that it's not, it's not like I'm trying to argue or convince
yeah.
you. I'm just simply saying that's how it feels at the end.
We just take things different ways, and that's fine. But what I'm saying is, when you go through all this movie, and this being one of the best modern Bond films that I have seen, then just leading to his death, and then you go through the credits. I wasn't going to stay. I was seriously walking out as the credits were going, and then somebody said, well, there's no end credits scene, because that wouldn't make sense. There's no point for an end credit scene. But they said, but it says James Bond will return. I said, no, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. You can't do that and then have that. I walked back into that theater, watched as the credits passed, and it said, sure enough, James Bond will return. And that's just more of a slap in the face, because you literally just killed him. You blew him up. Yep. There is no hint to the legend of James Bond going on. It's over. You killed him right then and there, and that's what this movie does. And I'm so mad about that. It's really hard to admit how good the rest of the movie is. And
they're a bit more forgiving, and maybe that has to do with age and experience. And I can appreciate that, because to me, yeah, they killed him. You said something that I didn't even really think about from that angle. You don't kill the main guy or the hero or whatever. And if you're gonna have a hero's death, it needs to amount to something. And nobody's really cared that much about Daniel Craig. I mean, honestly, and they haven't done anything, I thought, successfully in the 5 films to build up this emotional thing. I mean, so to me, again, like I say, this is by far one of the worst Bond films of all time, not just of Craig's tenure, because they've done everything that for as long as anybody's been a fan of Bond, they've watered him down so much. It's like watching Nancy Drew on the CW. It has absolutely nothing to do with the original source material. It's just a name, and it doesn't feel like a Bond film to me. What humor is there is lacking. Some of the stuff that we've gotten used to over Bond, it's just not in there. So that's why I say it doesn't feel like a Bond film. And I agree with you because I didn't even watch the end credits where it says James Bond will return. Obviously, it would be like, well, James Bond will return and Live and Let Die or Octopussy or whatever. Okay, you can kill him off and then reboot the franchise, and however you want to do it, call it James Bond or Jane Bond. I don't care. The point is when I say you shit on your audience, we shouldn't be surprised, like I say, that this is the way that films have been going, specifically the fact that you can take out a 60-year-old franchise like James Bond, 25 films, totally reimage it in a way that has absolutely nothing in common with the original stuff. You're taking a massive dump on a big part of the fan base. But if you have a big enough of a fan base that's willing to go see everything that's about equality and representation and all those catchphrases and words that seem to allegedly be popular, at least on social media, that's your prerogative, and you can do that. But what happens is when you constantly shit on something and all that, as long as there's an audience and you can make a movie and spend $200-300 million making it, and it makes you $500-600 million, I guess more power to you. But as a Bond fan for almost 50 years now, I can sit there and say that they've lost me. They've lost a lot of people. And at least if you're gonna, there's an old expression, if death is inevitable, the only thing that matters is style. So if you're gonna get your ass beat, if you're gonna die, be memorable. Go out, because that's your legacy. And they've done everything to let Bond go out with a whimper and not with a bang by emasculating him, not letting him womanize, not letting him do anything. You know what they could have done? They could have done everything they wanted. They could have LaShawn Lynch's character been the ass kicker and him just been a side character too old to do the job, but helps out in one scene. They could have done this so many different ways to make this movie and franchise go progressive if that's what they really want. And they do, apparently, from the choices. They could have had a very simple ending where you see Bond retiring, and he doesn't say anything, and you see him cooking a little girl some scrambled eggs, like he was kind of starting to try to do or like that, implying that he's retired now and he's home where he wants to be and he's a father. And he's outgrown what it means to be just another person machine. And hell, they could have made it cynical and basically showed him being kind of a wise person going, yeah, I'm a little too old for this shit sort of thing. It would have done absolutely nothing but let what people may think of Daniel Craig go out on a positive note, leave with some warm, happy thoughts. And regardless of whether they would continue with Lashana Lynch or whoever in that image, they could have let that person go out. So the point is you do good business. You let everybody go out strong. You don't bury both characters because then nobody wins. It's like having a fight and ends up being a tie and there's no fucking winner. It's a joke. It's a disgrace. And that's the thing that upsets me the most. It's not even Bond dying, or it's not even the way it's written and all the stuff that might offend older viewers like myself. Okay. It's the fact that they took the easiest cowardly way out possible. They tried to be all things to all people. They sanitize it so much. That's why I say it is in no way a Bond film whatsoever. And I stand by those comments there too. Oh, Backyard Moments is here. He says it was a great movie until the ending. Let's see if he wants to hop in and say something. If he does, I'll check him out.
Well, if he does, well then
if he comes,
we'll be here. But I'm going to go ahead and say I seriously think if you had wanted to end this movie, if you ended it differently, where he ends up on the boat, he pulls up, takes his trio of women now onto the boat, and they are riding off. He pulls his wife, takes a kiss, has an arm around the daughter, and they just pull back from that. And that's when you have the theme song play again and fades, just like a classic movie.
Yeah, exactly.
I would have loved
easy.
It. Huh?
Yeah, that would have been easy.
I mean, yeah, but it's enough. Sometimes easy is the best way.
That's my whole point. They knew that, and they chose to not do that.
They wanted to.
D-bags.
Yeah, no, they wanted to be assholes. They seriously did, and they totally just destroy a franchise. I'm really pissed off because of this ending, because it just ruins everything. And the movie was already long enough where you didn't need that scene at the end where, oh, let me tell you a story about James Bond, and they go ahead and clink glasses and leave the glasses there. No, you cut all that. Just have him escape.
It's supposed to be about Bond. Yep.
Open the blast doors, get on a boat, pull out, get everyone in. He ends up with the girl, his girls now, and he just goes away, and we pull back, and that would have been a great farewell to Daniel Craig, and this would have been his best Bond performance, and it would be one of the best modern Bond movies of all time. But they go ahead and decide to spit in the face of the people watching, and it ruins it.
Yeah. Well, let's do this. I don't want to take too long on this because we're pretty much done wrapping it up. I don't really know too much about where it's going to go in the future, but based off of what you've seen, what would you expect would happen, regardless of who they cast? How do you think the films are going to go?
I don't know. I think that a lot of people won't see the appeal unless there's a trailer for the next Bond, and it is exemplary. It's really not going to attract the audience that was there, because James Bond is dead. You just killed him. He can't return. And even if you reboot the franchise, we talked about that, that's going to have an effect on the future of Bond films. That being said, there's been I've seen some people theorizing that maybe with the reboot, what they'll do is go back to the 60s, that era, to keep the new Bond franchise in. And one of the problems with that is it's not actually the 60s, so it's going to come off as phony. But if they could execute that well, I think going back would be a good thing, because honestly, whenever we think Bond, we go back. And we move to that era, the early Bonds. So if we have a new franchise in that era, Will it be good? I don't know.
Thunderdome has got a comment in there saying, "Hey, that I'm confused. Bond dies at the end, but they say Bond will return," which you
Yeah.
had pointed out there, Pixel, and that they're rebooting again with what, a black Bond. You know, the
I'm going.
Thunderdome. If you caught this at the beginning, you may have heard me say something. I'll reiterate now because I think this is extremely important. We understand that COVID has done a lot as far as the film industry and things getting delayed. And this did. We didn't even bother talking about how prescient the plot of this movie has to do with current times when it comes to that. I don't really want to say too much, but I will say this. I will say that I felt that Barbara Broccoli has totally tried to reimage it in the way she wants, which means not James Bond the way we all know him for 20 films or whatever. I'd even argue going back to early Pierce Brosnan that they've really emasculated him. But I think they've used a lot of the trailers as a way to confuse you, thinking it's going to be one film because this film was not like the trailers. They've done a horrible job with everything with it, but I think they floated enough trial balloons with all the things they've hinted at. Well, James Bond will be back, but not as 007. And, well, Lashana Lynch's character is 007, so James Bond's not even really around anymore. I think they put enough obfuscation out there to see what would stick and what wouldn't, because they're going to rely on, licking their finger, sticking it up in the air, and whatever they think's, PC at the time, they're going to try to capture lightning in a bottle and go about it that way. And I think the biggest thing it's going to be is that they're going to have to make a decision really quick. And it's just me, I'm probably wrong, of one of two things. One, pick an actor that's young enough that can commit to 3 to 5 films for another cycle, let's say, which again can be done, and it may rule out people like Clive Owen and maybe some older people. We mentioned Hiddleston earlier. Or you do a separate thing where you go, we're going to take whoever's hot at the time, do one period piece, and then just redo it. And then I hate to say bonus round, pro tip, they start remaking all the old movies. And they could do that and make an ass ton of money, and they already have the source material, and there's nothing they could do. But you could take Dr. No, and anything you find sexist in it or misogynistic or whatever those words are, and say, if we reimage Dr. No in the way we would want Dr. No to be, this is what it would look like here. Because they're doing that already with TV and movies. Why wouldn't they do it with the Bond franchise?
No, you're right. That could happen. I'm going to say this, and Bunderdub says a black Bond. That being said, Idris Elba, which has been theorized for years, I really think he could pull off that role. He has that charm.
At all.
You don't think that at all?
I've never saw that about Idris. I thought he was too goofy. Smiled too much.
You've never seen him in Luther?
Again, smiled too much, little goofy acting to me.
I disagree. I
understand.
Disagree.
You disagree? There's one thing we did not talk about. We need to bring up real quick. I know we're closing up shop here. The most obvious thing about James Bond, we didn't talk about the theme song, No Time to Die. Give it to me, and then I'll give you my take. Eilish, however they're pronouncing
Billie
it these
Eilish,
days.
Yeah. Okay. She does have a really good voice. The problem is, we disagree.
Sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I think she has a good voice, but I think that it's really ultimately forgettable.
I think the genius in that pairing is her brother or whoever that guy is. The style that she sings with, that breathy, airy thing, I don't mind. I will say that. I thought it was better than Writing is on the Wall. She's almost listenable, but compared to what's out there these days, that's not really a difficult thing to say. Yeah, but I do think, the lack of a really bombastic score, which we've come to know most James Bond themes, is what I think most people have a tendency to gravitate towards. And there's obviously exceptions, All Time High, a few others. I love the garbage theme, The World Is Not Enough. Some people hate it, but it has the strings and the score. And this one just, to me, you're supposed to get caught into a Bond film, the opening gambit. Then you're supposed to have something that just gets you pumped up. So when they start off and they're somewhere else, you're like, yeah, I'm ready for this. And this one, it's like she's singing. I'm like, yeah, okay. All I can think of is her on saying whatever she's going to say. And it's like, yeah, she just, I don't know. I felt like a lot of the people that sang Bond understood and got Bond, and I've been feeling like the last 3 or 4 films that's really not been the case. Just regardless of the talent level of the individual performing the songs, I just feel like that's been missing. But yeah, I don't know. I didn't think it was that good either.
No,
forgettable is a good way to describe it.
I
Not
don't
bad,
even
but
think
forgettable.
it's not. It's forgettable. That's the problem. Backyard Moments brings up MGM doesn't want to mail Bond anymore. That's not true because they clearly said James Bond will return. They didn't say 007 will return, which everybody could then theorize. Okay, they're going to go ahead and have.
They can always change that.
Lynch go ahead and come back.
MGM's been for sale too.
But you put James Bond, they're going to reboot, and they're just going to put a new James Bond. And it's not. I guess you could say it's the bad ending, like The Dark Knight Rises. It seems that Batman dies, but then it's revealed after that he's still alive. So that's the.
I want to point out, just because they say James Bond doesn't mean it's not Jamie Bond. It could be a girl. You call her James because she's gay. This felt like the movie had parts that I liked. My number one rip was the ending, but not only just the ending, it was too damn long. There were parts I liked about this, but the villain was weak. Yes. Sorry, Rami Malek. You see him halfway into the movie, and then at the end, he's like, "Oh, I'm just some crazy guy surrounded by people who will just do stuff for me."
In my secret underground lair.
Yeah, I'm like, you're not Dr.
The secret
No.
underground lair is classic Bond.
It felt like they're trying to make him like Dr. No, and I'm like, you're not Dr. No at all. You're not. You're just some crazy guy. And then the girl. Yes, he was hung up on the girl. The reason there's another 007 here because Bond decided to retire after Spectre, after the last episode with the girl. But then, and then she brought him to this island, where Vesper is buried. And then she, and yeah, it was really messed up.
You got to get over her so we can go forward is basically what she says.
But she's not over her ex.
Exactly, which we didn't even know about, and they conveniently wrote in. I agree with you.
Yeah, that was weak. I would have basically.
What do you mean?
Rami Malek was the one that basically saved her from the water. He's the one that killed her.
I get that. No,
but did you notice that when the girl and the woman and she came, Madeline came into the island, he's like, "We'll protect your family."
I don't.
Yes, they were. He
wanted her. He wanted her. That's the whole thing. He wanted her, even though she was Bond's, in a sense, because the baby and herself, they're tied to Bond. It's what Bond loves. That's what they're saying.
Did you believe at the end the baby was really Bond's?
I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't feel that way to me.
No.
No, it works out that she's supposed to be. It's supposed to be 5 years after what they did. She didn't have time. It's not a baby. It's you can. It's supposed to be like a 5-year-old. Yeah.
No. Like I said, there was good parts about this movie. I love the Anna Diaz, her scene in there with Spectre when they're trying to get to the guy.
Yeah.
But this movie was also insulting to anybody who liked the old stuff. Felix getting the one out the way he did. That was horrible.
Agreed.
I disagree. I don't think you can kill classic characters.
But as soon as
kill Bond, that's my main.
Going back and look at the signs watching the movie when Felix died, I knew this is. It's kind of you could kind of tell they were going to just end it like a Christopher Nolan trilogy. It's going to wrap up nice and tightly, having Bond be dead. Because at first they make you believe that he's replaced by this woman because she's a new 007, but then he kind of like he actually quips gives her quips and upsets her a couple times, and then she gives him the number back because she knows she can't be 007 because he is 007 when he gets restated.
I know you just joined, but I had made the comment that I felt they actually shit on her character the most because they made her look weak instead of really going for it the whole way. Is that what you're saying?
Pretty much. Yeah, everybody thought that she was going to be the new 007, and that's basically, and they were going to make fun of Bond, but they actually made her a joke.
No, I disagree. We take it different ways. And as for you said the Christopher Nolan trilogy, that ends with hope. Bruce is alive at the end of that. Bond dies here.
Listen
That's
to
the major difference.
Listen to what I'm saying. It's like a Christopher Nolan analogy. It types it up. This is a bad, like I said in the comments, this is a bad Christopher Nolan trilogy ending. Like Dark Knight Rises was bad, whole bad, the whole entire thing. And I'm not saying that the ending of Nolan's trilogy was good at all. I hated that ending. It was horrible. He gets a happy ending. No, that's not Batman. That's some dude putting on a cape saying he's Batman. Batman would never do that. Just like Bond would never let himself, oh, I'm just going to die. So what if he's infected? He can just never go see them. Let them live, continue being Bond. Because Hercules is destroyed.
He can't.
Yes,
because
he can.
The disease passes at such a rate that anybody he ever comes into contact with will also have it. And also, the chances that it could wrap around somehow towards her, especially because she lives in England.
Are you trying to say to me that Q can't develop something to basically counteract or destroy the nanobites in your blood? Like getting electrocuted?
That's why he says, you can't be taken out. That is why he says.
Sorry.
Since it's a designer
flaw.
Since a designer drug, for lack of a better term, based off YouTube's algorithm, I'm trying to avoid certain words. Because it's a designer one, you clearly know what its makeup is. You could come up with a vaccine rather quickly from that, I think. And if you wanted to go that route, not that it's matters. But it was something we didn't even think about in the film, though, because it was so useless.
I think, and then this is my point. I think Daniel Craig wanted to die. He wanted to go out and use the swan song, James Bond, of his career, saying, my career's over. I'm never coming back, as Bond. That's why this is the ending he gets. This is such a horrible ending.
He wanted to be the man that killed Bond.
So, as far as they probably will reboot. They spend all this time world building just to them to reboot, And no, at this point, everybody's dropped off. I know a lot of people who dropped off with Skyfall. Skyfall was horribly boring. This makes Skyfall look interesting.
Skyfall looked great, but was a turd. And Spectre, I thought, was the worst of, I think, almost all the Bond films, actually, at this point. I really liked Casino Royale.
Yeah.
I understand Quantum of Solace had issues because of strikes and stuff, and it had some bad things, but it had some okay stuff. It was just kind of messy. And then after that, it's not been recognizable. So we're going on 10, 12 years now.
Yeah, so that's it. That's it, Craig. As far as who comes next, if they race swap, who cares at this point? No one's going to watch it. I know Backyard's like no race swapping, but at this point, no one. Do you really care if they do or not? I think anyone's really going to watch it. I think it's going to bomb.
Yeah, for the first time in my life of seeing Bond films for almost 50 years in theaters, the next one that comes out, I don't care who they get for it. I don't care how they promote it based off their track record of the past 3-4 films. I'm going to sit there and say, you know what? I think I'll probably just wait till it's on my big screen. That's how turned off I am with it. And I understand that you're trying to recapture a younger audience that's going to grow up with a re-imaged Bond and capture your money that way for it. But the fact that it costs them about $200 million to make a movie, maybe another 50 to 100 to promote it, that's big bucks, and they're gonna have to check all the boxes. And so my only hope is that one of these movies bombs and they get the message that, you can't screw over it, because I just don't know, with as big of a franchise it is. You guys are bigger Star Wars fans than I am, and all that stuff. And I've said Disney's ruined everything they've had their hands on for over 20 years now. We may argue that another time, but the point is, when you have these big companies and all these hands making decisions, you usually get an inferior product, no matter how glossy it looks. And I'm afraid that's what happened here. And it's frustrating, because I agree with you both. There were some things, I think, due to the director in here that made the film almost watchable compared to some of the others. Final thoughts there, RDV. Anything else that you'd want to add or comments on the theme song?
My only final thoughts is the first movie was made in 2006. I almost wonder if this movie would have made before around 2010, if they would have started earlier and got out of all this whole woke politics. I wonder how different the story would have been.
Well, they'd actually have to write a film then, wouldn't they?
Yeah, but because of the time it's made, because all the virtue signals you have to check. I mean, I didn't see the cucking part as you guys. I mean, but I can see where you might think there is, but I didn't really. That wasn't a really big deal in me. The whole Vesper thing. Because that's what he was in Quantum of Solace. I expected that. His character's always been. It's nothing's changed. It's just that they decided to focus it more on this. They want to tie. They want to do. That's why this movie is so long. They want to do not flashbacks, but they want to connect everything. They give you a nice wrap up of the past movies since the first movie, Casino Royale. They want it all to be one giant story, like a giant. If those are comic books, this is the final issue. It's got to connect out the whole entire story, even though it's a separate story. It all connects to one narrative, and they wrap it up. And then yeah, there you go. Here's your $10 book. That's garbage.
I'm going to disagree because the woke points that they were trying to pull was a complete fake out. It was a complete fake out. So no, for this movie, it looked like it was supposed to be something that was woke, but it wasn't. And
how many people did Bond sleep with?
None.
How many times did he get rebuffed by women? That wasn't his alleged wife or girlfriend. Just simple questions. Simple questions.
Here's but it makes sense as to why he's not sleeping around. It makes absolute sense because he's still hung up on the wife he put on a train and pushed away.
Well,
this is on Her Majesty's Service. Plus,
what?
Yeah, that's the one where he got married.
Yeah. So instead of her dying, he dies because the guy has to die. Like I said, this movie's hot garbage, but there are parts of it that are good. If you get a chance to watch it, or any chance, just fast forward it, and you can just watch the good parts and just skip the rest.
If you watch it on 1.25 speed, it'll go good.
It goes normal. It goes normal. But that's my biggest thing. I was like, that's why my name's No Time to Care, because I was watching this. I had to stop, come back, and watch the last hour of it. Because
you have a short attention span, sir.
No, because
Yes,
I wanted to go to sleep. I didn't realize it was 2 hours and 44 minutes. I was like, when is this movie ending? Because there wasn't that much. There was action at the very beginning, and then there was some action with Ana de Armas, and then
a lot of talking and
the only action was towards the end, as far as the big action, as far as the fight scene. But even that was a whimper because I'm wounded in the leg. I'm hobbling along. I said, you knew he was going to kill himself once he got the whole thing, the shutter doors. And like, it's just the best action was probably at the very beginning. The Land Rover when he's with the girls inside the car driving through the trees. I'm like, this is getting far fetched. This is turning into Indiana Jones, Legend of the Crystal Skull.
You are wrong because I've watched Indiana Jones before. It is hard garbage.
I'm just saying there are action scenes here, but it's just too much garbage in there. It's like 25% good, 75% bad. I give this 2 stars out of 5.
I would give it more than I would give it more than that. The only problem that I have is the ending. That's what I brought up. There's so much in this film to enjoy, but when you kill him at the end, it just ruins it. It ruins everything that you just watched. This entire great film is ruined by a single moment. And well, okay, it's more than a single moment because as soon as he gets the poison on him and it's explained, he does get to shoot. He does get to shoot Rami Malek a few times, which did feel good, but it's all for naught. And
I'll just say this: I agree with Rob, though. I mean, that's why in my feature, I'm saying it's only 2 stars because Bond used to go around not getting hooked to women. He learned the first lesson when his wife died on Majesty's Service, but this is a reboot that never happened. So he hasn't learned that mistake yet. And there's no smoking. He wasn't. He hardly drank, and he wasn't.
He drank a few times. Wait. No.
Yeah, the Heineken contract I think expired.
Yeah,
back to shaken and stirred.
Yeah,
I mean it's so blatantly obvious.
And then halfway through the action scene with Ana de, oh crap, I can't remember her last name. But they go ahead. He pulls a drink and they take a shot before they go back to the action.
Yes, that's one shot for comedy effect.
Yeah.
But he wasn't smoking like he used to. He's not drinking. He's not, and I said he's not fornicating with women. He's not
being international playboy.
They took away they neutered Bond,
which makes sense plot wise. I insist.
Yes, I mean, yeah, he did. Yeah, I can't no longer be with women. I'm gonna let her survive. Even though she pretty much just ruined his whole entire life. He was fine being where he was. You know, he left her on the train, and he got pulled in this mess because her boyfriend, Rami Malek, was her boyfriend.
No, he wasn't.
Yeah, he was.
My gosh, no. That is not what they are hinting at all, and you totally missed the point of that character.
Point of the character is he sucks. He was pointless himself. He was hardly in the movie.
Sometimes watching movies with you, man, you miss so much.
And then he died like a bitch.
As he should have, because he is a bitch.
So let's just end it there. We're all very passionate about it, and we all are basically... Yeah.
Idris Elba, go.
All right, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Check us out here on the Extreme Movie Show. We are reviewing the Bond films in order. We've got those dropped. Twin Peaks is continuing to drop at a weekly rate. We're having some horror movies, too, that are also dropping here during the month of October. So if there's any ones you'd like us, or any other film for that matter, to take a look at, let us know in the comments below, too. Appreciate you all jumping in tonight and talking about James Bond. Obviously, for those that care about Bond, it can be very emotional. It's interesting because it's such a divisive movie. That's why we wanted to talk about here on the Extreme Movie Show. For RDV, for Professor Pixel, for everybody involved here, I'd like to say thanks for listening as all. Check us out on Facebook on the Extreme Movie Show page. Join us there. Spread the word around. Have a good night. And as always, stay extreme. Don't die like a punk. Don't go out like Bond.
No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
That's not funny, and you've been saving that the whole time.
I'm
going to kill you now, James.
This video's dying just like the movie.